Don in London, hello. It's January, no it's not, what am I talking about? It's March 2nd. Why did I say January? It says here, March 2nd, 2013. Anyway, my video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour could be equally addictive around people, places and things, romance and finance, all that sort of stuff. And life got completely unmanageable drinking, and it nearly killed me more than once. So I had to learn how to be sober, and I was very fortunate. Some professionals got me sober in the end after many years of me trying to get sober. They got me sober dry, and then I was dry drunk, which meant all my feelings came out in a great big emerging pattern of rage and utter hopelessness around how to stay in recovery. And I didn't really want to be in recovery. I didn't really know that I wanted to be able to wake up from day to day. So life was tormenting. And the professional said, if you need to try and sustain your sobriety, why not try a fellowship? And that fellowship turned out to be Alcoholics Anonymous. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, the very last place I thought I ought to be in my life, because it meant I was a failure. Well, only on one thing. I failed to stop drinking when it was getting bad for me, and I didn't know how to stop. So fellowship has done that. It's helped me learn how to be sober, given me some principles of living which work for me, and it means that life is fun, but it's also good, bad and ugly, as life is. So how does AA help me? Well, number one, it's a place to express myself, and also to listen to many people about how they got sober. So if you are in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, you know I don't speak for you, and I don't speak for you ever. I speak for myself and how it works for me. So these are what the videos are about, why the 12-step principles work for me in recovery, one day at a time. And the most important thing is fellowship and inclusion, and then learning what love is. Not in a sexual way, but just generally, genuinely, authentically, what is love? Beyond lust. So what is brotherly, sisterly, fatherly, unclely, you name it, what is love? Well, it comes down to something much more profound than reproduction, although all of that is fun too. Or why else would we have it programmed into our genetics? Anyway, how does fellowship help me? Fellowship helps me like this, and this is the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. That's it. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied to anything, but you might be. So you may be involved in these things, but AA isn't. AA is not allied to any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So the door is open with a desire to stop drinking, and you don't get locked in. So if you don't like it, the door is always there. And I didn't like it at first, and I exited quite a few times because I couldn't. I felt it was futile trying to give up drink because I couldn't. And how on earth could anything else help me? I'd stopped learning. So I needed humility to ask for help. And January I covered the first step of AA, admitted that I was powerless over alcohol and life had got unmanageable. And the only thing I could do was stop drinking and learn how to stay stopped. Then step 2 in February, being restored to sanity. I found out I'm restored to sanity on a daily basis, that life is good, bad and ugly, and I need to know what I can and cannot do. And it takes time. So step 3 this month, March, is all about your higher power. And you know, for me, a higher power within the fellowship is the collective truth, love and wisdom that I hear on a daily basis. Some of it's truth, some of it's love, some of it's wisdom, some of it's a bit ropey, not quite there yet. A bit like me, we're all learning, progress not perfect, and that's the answer. We make it one day at a time. So what's been on my mind for the last day or so? So it's about sponsorship, because there are people in AA who have an understanding of the 12-step program, steps to be open, honest and willing to change, and encouragement to make progress and never perfect. So sponsors, sponsorship. Fellows in fellowship often sponsor newcomers. So if you're new to the fellowship or thinking about it, there may be sponsors around who can help you with the basics. But there are some things you need to know. A sponsor can help a newcomer settle down into practical routines, help them with the first 90 days, help them begin to understand the principles of fellowship, the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. So 12 steps to keep us sober, 12 traditions to hold the fellowship together. As a sponsor, I am never your higher power. This is me as a sponsor. I'm never your higher power, and you're equal to me in all respects. And I will not tell you what to do today. It's not my role. I can share about the steps and how they work for me, which is what I do with my videos, and how life works for me today. But I can't tell you how to live your life. And a friend on a social network commented and is concerned about newcomers being overtaken by unfortunate circumstances around sponsorship and friendship. All of those in fellowship are sensitive, and we all have our emotional and spiritual path, learning what we can do and what we cannot do on a daily basis. And part of this learning becomes a way of life. We look for the virtues of life and try to be open, honest and willing to be truthful in our intentions. Even the best of us need to check our motives and our moral compass when interacting with newcomers. So for me, being a man and oriented sexually towards women, I need to be cautious in my behaviour with new women coming into fellowship, to direct them to the next right woman who's got a bit of sobriety, so they can make friends with a gender equal relationship, I suspect. So, you know, it's not about picking up young girls or even old girls, because I like me girls my age to a large extent, but I do have an eye for beauty and sensitivity, because that's just what we're programmed to see. And then it's the appropriateness of our behaviour which is important. So we learn what we can and cannot do on a daily basis, and part of this learning becomes a way of life. We look for the virtues of life and try to be open, honest and willing to be truthful about our intentions. Even the best of us need to check our motives and our moral compass when interacting with newcomers. There can be many Lotharios and cougars on the prowl, and sometimes these predators are unaware of their own activities when everyone else can see it. Now what do you do about that? I mean, what happened a few weeks ago? An absolutely gorgeous, mature lady suddenly found herself fascinated by a young man. Well, that's normal, isn't it, for some? Now, natural instincts are not going to go away in recovery. In fact, they get better. So, step 3, you've got to make up your own mind what you do about that. And I haven't come to an answer which is satisfactory yet. And that makes me uncomfortable, but that's just the way it is right now. But we do warn generally about young men, young women are natural creatures and should be. But if you've got a malady which is killing you, probably better to concentrate on the malady rather than making it worse by intimacy which may be questionable, because you might be just fixing. Anyway, step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Sometimes we can see a sponsor who seems to be really good, and we want them to help us because they're bright and shiny. And sometimes somebody suggests they would sponsor you. Now, it's happened both ways for me. Either way, there can be a lot of flattery going on, which is about ego, rather than self-esteem. If you've got the self-esteem, you don't need all the, "ooh, I like you" bits. But you've got to learn about people. Sorry, I've learned I've got to learn about people. And fellowship, it's like any other walk of life, and more powerful when it comes to looking for a fix, to fill the emptiness and find sanctuary in another human being. So we can make another person our higher power if we're not careful. That is why in fellowship many stress emphatically that we need a higher power which is bigger than any single human in fellowship or on the planet. Now, the combined wisdom in fellowship works for me very well. The higher power, and not expressed through one single voice, and not my voice either. So if you've heard me, you need about 10,000 more people over the years to listen to improve your wisdom, experience, strength and hope. I'm no good on my own. Indeed, I'm useless on my own to anyone. I need my connections in fellowship. The higher power, and not expressed through one single voice, not me and not you. The many voices in fellowship where wisdom resides. Step 3 is so close to step 4. So step 3, let go and let good things happen. Letting go the old life and asking for help opens the door to all the vices and all the virtues humans have within them. Many of us are still wanting something, the old life back, of some of it, and to be the person we used to be, who found satisfaction in fixing life with a drink, a substance, or particular people, places and things. Now, the allure of the old life, and some of the extremes are still hangovers which impact on our emotional and spiritual well-being. When it was like this, it was great, but I can't get that back. Why is that? Well, because I'm sober and I realise it's a bit silly. But I still like what happened, because it was chaotic, messy and exciting. The good news is it gets more chaotic, messy and exciting in recovery, because you can't forget it. Yes, and step 4, which is the fearless moral inventory, helps us understand where we've gone wrong and where we've gone right, what our assets are and what our liabilities are. But if this is it. So close to step 4, let go and let good things happen, let go the old life, and asking for help opens the door to all the vices and all the virtues we have. Many of us are still wanting something, the old life back or some of it, and to be the person we used to be, who found satisfaction in fixing life with a drink, a substance, or particular people, places and things, or large amounts of money as well in my case, by working hard for it. The allure of the old life, and some of the extremes are still hangovers which impact on our emotional and spiritual well-being in the moment of now. Neediness, desire, lust are a very heady concoction. So that's neediness, desire and lust. We all have those in us. And I assure you, even as you get older, you still have lusty feelings, but maybe the equipment's a bit broken down, as in my case. But I've been helped on that score, so I'm always hopeful, eventually. But that's aside from where I am, because I need love, and to love and to cherish, which is what I've got in many friends, which is absolutely marvellous. You know, the icing on the cake, well, who knows? The icing on the cake is sobriety, always. Neediness, desire, lust are there, and with an outlook of proving we are still able to function well, the vices can lead anyone into misbehaviour when seeking love in all the wrong places, namely meetings of AA. But love does flourish in AA. I know, it's happened to me. Because why wouldn't I be attracted to girls who used to drink like me? And you know who you are. I don't mean that in a personal way. We all have these things in us, is what I'm saying. And to varying degrees, and depending on how the hormones are working. We are powerless over many things, also hormones, because men have them as well as women, and finding the right path takes time, and it is very difficult sometimes when natural instincts have been restored. It does not mean that we have been restored to sanity as well, and sometimes misbehaviour abounds before step 4 has begun, or at any stage, because you can't control life. I can't say by the end of the 12 steps I'll be able to do this. It's not like that. I'll have 12 living principles which help me when the life experience happens, and you'll get better at it as more life experience happens. It's not a test, it's a flow. It's a flow of learning, and it's okay to fuck up, definitely, because I have on many occasions. If I haven't made mistakes on any given day and worked out and resolved them, sometimes they only take seconds. Some mistakes can take quite a long time. Yes. So, it's very easy to fall in love or fall into lust, to want to save a person we find attractive, both emotionally and physically. And therein lies the road of destruction. If we are not careful, we misunderstand our motives and find ourselves in a real pickle. Ooh. When we are asked by someone to sponsor them, we need first ask ourselves if we are fit and able, and we have our motives clearly defined in terms of being a sponsor. Me included. I'm human, and because of it, I'm quite traditional in my outlook. When it comes to sponsorship, I would not sponsor a woman, preferably not a woman, because I do not need to test my human instincts and my nature as a man on the emotional spiritual development with the steps and the principles. People get close as a sponsor or a sponsee in emotional and spiritual development. That's part of the nature of what we do. So we get close on those things, and testing natural instincts gets in the way. Even if you're saying, well, I'm a woman with a man sponsor, or I'm a man with a woman sponsor, if you have that sexual attraction underlying in your natural instincts, and that's where the confusion lies often. I can overcome that, says ego and thinking. On the other hand, why are you picking somebody of the opposite sexual preference, as you like, to be your sponsor? Natural instincts get in the way when learning the principles. Love and intimacy are dangerous territory and absolutely necessary in learning how to live life sober and not fixing today. So love and intimacy are our dangerous territory, because those are the things which can cause us to go off the rails again. So you don't need to mix that up with learning what the steps are, even if you think you are better off with a man if you're a woman, or a woman with a man. I don't know that that's such a good idea, because the tension is there. Because if you have to think about it, ego is ruling. You're edging God out, or you're edging out the higher power. Number one, you're going against a principle which seems quite normal. Concentrate on the steps before you get to romance and finance, or rather concentrate on the steps so the romance and finance going on is more able to work. You don't have to delay your life, because life is going to keep on happening. It's making good, responsible choices and not having the tension underlying. Because it will, because of nature. You know, if you're trying to go against nature in order to get your recovery, you're on a losing streak already, because you think you know better than nature. There is a constant agitation in all humans around vices and virtues. That's good. Often in the old life, where extremes of behaviour covered up our fear, we put on a brave face and pretended to be okay, and our ego made us control or suppress much of what was going on under the surface. So everything is still there under the surface. Ego will fasten it down and suppress it, especially if you've got a thinking mind. I think I can do this. You know, I can neuro-linguistically program myself to overrule my feelings and my nature. Go with the flow, go with nature, rather than trying to go against it. Neuro-linguistic programming is quite dangerous in the wrong hands. Those who are novices and don't understand their true emotional core around love. So your thinking brain can make you think one thing, but your emotions are all over the place. So emotional and spiritual is what the fellowship is there for. Yet we still find ourselves logically and egotistically thinking we know better, and I don't know better for you. Yes. So we suppress much of what is going on under the surface. The emptiness and a desire for love is there. Drink was a fix, substance was a fix, people, places and things could be a fix. We might do geographical transitions, and many relations starting up and slowing down. And the attitude in the old life was about power over and controlling our situation from day to day. And when we couldn't, or we just needed to get to oblivion quick because we were worn out, a drink always helped. The new life, courage to change, faith in doing the next right thing, and self-confidence growing, hopefully. And yet there is a vestige of ego in sponsoring, and also in relationships within the fellowship, where power and knowledge and a desire to be loved can block progress one day at a time, not only for the sponsor, who's being a right prick, but also for the sponsee who was at the end of the prick. Vicky Verky. Anyway, romance and finance in early days of recovery. You may already be in a relationship when you get to the fellowship. And finance may be up and down as well, especially. So in early days of recovery, and any day in recovery actually will happen. Even if we think we don't want it to happen, it may just happen because humans and emotions go together. Natural instincts are there, as well as extreme feelings and extreme needs, and extreme fixing of feelings with people, places and things. We want to feel right, and it could go outright wrong. When people suggest best not to get embroiled in romance or finance within fellowship for at least a year, and a newcomer's emotions are extreme, trying to put the feelings of or the genie back into the bottle is very difficult indeed. So what I'm saying is, be careful as a sponsor and know your motives, know your boundaries, and make them absolutely clear. And if you're having to override your natural instincts in sponsoring, then if you have to question it, maybe it's not the right path. Very difficult indeed, which is why the guidelines for sponsors are so straightforward. A sponsor is for the steps and suggestions and principles in fellowship, and certainly not for romance or finance. I've caught both, which can be a bit difficult. In the olden days, this is in the olden days, we would have a rule book, or we would even read the rule book and throw it away, no matter what was going on. The rules always applied to other people, and we could see why they needed them. So any person who constructed furniture with an instruction leaflet knows that after a while they forget about the instruction leaflet or the suggestions on the leaflet and try and put it together and end up with parts either short on parts or too many parts. I know this from the desk I got from a local flat pack supplier. I had a huge bag of bits left over, but the thing stayed together for a few years. It's now falling apart, but that's because I've moved it so much. But the same applies, in recovery. Really, if you're a sponsor, really understand something, that you're not the higher power. Never. You're part of the higher power, but an equal number of voices need to be listened to by your sponsee, or you're doing them a disservice. So, in the old days we would read the rule book and throw it away because it applied to other people. We applied the rule book to everybody else, but not to ourselves. The rules always applied to the other people, and we could see no reason why that we needed them. And one of the things in fellowship we know beyond all doubt is that rules, regulations and laws do not help under any circumstances for anyone in fellowship. So there are no rules, regulations or laws to govern people in fellowship, because it's emotional and spiritual development, feelings in the moment of now, and learning how to cope with them, learning out what we can and cannot do. Either the rules would be so difficult that nobody would be able to join the fellowship, or the rules would be used by gatekeepers and control freaks, marshalling people in and out of fellowship. You're in because you like this. You're out because you've got an ugly mug. You're in because you look like this, or you look like that. Or you're in because you're God believing, or you're out because you are a God believer. All that sort of crap would go on. So everybody's entitled to their own opinion and outlook, freedom of choice. And somehow we get along together with these 12 steps and 12 traditions. So we don't want people marshalling people in and out, trying to control anything, be gatekeepers or control freaks. We don't want that. That is why we need to rely on common sense and gumption and sensibility to show us the way forward. One day at a time, we learn our moral compass, and we do not need to test our nature when ego says one thing and common sense says another. Hope you're listening. Some of you out there with 40 or 50 sponsees, because you're so good at it. Yeah, there's a bit of judgment for you, but it's a judgment I know. I know what it's like. I know what it is to do a thorough job properly. Anyway, learning what love is in recovery is a daily journey, and how you conduct yourself is your personal journey. If you truly live step 1, step 2, and all the steps through to step 12, which is where they stop, the 13th step need not apply, which is where people are predators and they prey on the weak. Even when you feel it ought to, because you are a special case and so are they, we are not here to ruin other people. We are in fellowship, learning how to love and be loved back, as we may, and follow our endeavours which suit us on the journey of life and just for today. I know the pitfalls of romance and finance within fellowship, having experienced them. With all the best intentions, if a person does not have a grasp and utilise the 12 steps on a daily basis, once you've started on the emotional and spiritual journey, romance and finance still happen, and the consequences make life difficult. At the same time, if we do not engage in romance and finance, we will never learn. And to be heartbroken in recovery is a truly difficult experience, but it's worthwhile because it shows we care, not only about us and the heartbreak, but also if we've inflicted it on somebody else, because there's nothing worse than heartbreak. People die of it, and have done since man was conscious, had conscious contact with other human beings. At the same time, if we do not engage in romance and finance, we will never learn. Fortunately, the 12 steps do help anyone, anywhere, learn more about what it is to be in a relationship with intimacy, love and affection, which are primary needs for most human beings. Romance, we definitely had, I thought about this in the romance department with girls in my life in recovery. We definitely had enough sobriety, and they were equal to me, and we learned how to live together to an extent, and then learned how not to live together to a large extent. And the truth is, old patterns can emerge. Ego can come into play and much more besides. So we will get hurt again, and ego protects how we feel about it. When we feel diminished by a broken heart, ego helps protect for a little while because we're in denial, and then we emerge again, hopefully, with a more open. But the cycle of finding out about how far we go deeply into an intimate relationship. We learn from the can do, cannot do, the wisdom we learn as we go along. So if we're really truthful, and when we intuitively sense something is not right, we just say something doesn't feel right. Can you sense it too? If that had happened, relationships would still have happened, but they may have been a bit shorter and less hurtful, both ways round. And I don't mean I'm laughing because I'm laughing at me, stubborn old git who would go on to the end. If I can fix this, I will. But the answer is, hang on. If we don't feel right, why? What can we do about it? It's empathy, where love, inclusion, affection reside. We don't stop loving people just because we can't be with them. If they've got a completely different outlook, different way of life, it might be absolutely wonderful, vive la différence and all that. But if it's too diverse and there's no common ground, what on earth are we doing? We could still love them, and they can be far away, but that's good. And the truth is, old patterns can emerge. We learned, we parted, and we are sober. Much learning about love and intimacy, which is all good on the road to recovery, because the road to recovery includes intimacy, love and romance, hopefully, and dodgy finance, because the whole world's in depression at the moment. I'm thankful and respectful, learning how to cherish and not be superficial and indifferent in relationships. And so the journey continues, and we never know how life is going to turn out, especially with romance. Let go expectations and let go entitlement. It ought to be like this, or the resentments are real and they're already under construction day by day. So, because of ego, I put myself on Match.com and got some winks. I thought to myself, what am I doing? I want to be with... I don't know how it works. I will only find out on a daily basis, so please don't take advice from me on this. Other than follow your moral compass, really. To love and to cherish is wonderful, and intimacy will flourish naturally as we let go ego and we are less superficial and indifferent to others. So when you're flicking through all those profiles, you go, oh, I like you, I like you, I like you. It's superficial. There's no love in there. Mind you, who knows what floats your boat? I don't. I don't know where I get to with this sometimes, but it's important because love is core to human beings living well. Life will be good, bad or ugly. How we cope with reality is as we learn and we endeavour, and the 12 steps always help me on my way. With regard to finance and fellowship, not really a good idea on any given day. I've found people fall out, people advise one thing, friendships deteriorate and one of them dies and the other one's mortified and shameful about it and goes out drinking because A, they felt hard done by in the first place, forgot they loved this person even though they gave them bad advice, and then they die. Now, where does that leave you? So, fellowship for sobriety, so the rest of life can happen, hopefully. How am I feeling this morning? Well, I'm half in and half out on that one, because most of my friends are in fellowship. I've got acquaintances in the area who I see from time to time. But this is how I feel this morning. With the benefit of a couple of meetings in the last few days, phone calls with friends in fellowship, and being helped by conscious contact with many people, more informed I am, and cared for, and able to care for others, life feels okay. And daylight comes early and sometimes stays later as the season changes and spring starts to emerge. I'm waiting for the magnolia trees to come out. I need to go check that they're not out yet. Happier in myself because of fellowship, and more able to cope. Always the many, always the experience, strength and hope of many voices in recovery helps keep me restored to sanity. Until, of course, life impacts in a good, bad or ugly way, and if I cannot cope, I can ask for help, and I can work out what I can and cannot do, and the wisdom to know the difference. So for me and everyone, I guess, the higher power prevails in the moment, the higher power of the many. God works through people, so does the devil, so you've got to spot the difference. And I can work out what I can and cannot do, and the wisdom to know the difference, the higher power prevails in the moment, minute, hour, and today. So that's me, and I think I'm too late to go to my meeting now. I shall go to a later one, and be careful. I'm tired out actually. These videos are quite difficult to do, because write the script, or write down my feelings and reflections, and what I'm picking up in terms of knowledge and experience and strength and hope, and trying to share it. So I might not do them every day, I'll just see how I go, but they are quite exhausting to do, and I need to be replenished as well. So the Serenity Prayer, which tells me what I can and cannot do. God, grant me the serenity, or to good conscience. God, grant me the serenity to be restored to sanity. God, grant me the serenity to be myself, with freedom to choose. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, just for one day.